you gonna get free this time? Falling into a blue sky mind.
Hello and welcome back to You, Me, and the Elephant with Deb Air and
Crystal clear, baby. So today we are talking about celebration. And the question is, what are you celebrating?
Great question. For this, Crystal Clear is clear about so many wonderful things, even when she's not. I celebrate her and all of it, which brings us to celebration, doesn't it?
It feels exciting already, I must say.
We're celebrating it. Yes.
We don't even know what we're celebrating. And celebrating is happening in our body right now.
A freaking men to that. We've noticed that this podcast is so many forms of celebration for us. Hopefully it is for you as well. On that note, in preparation for this, I was looking up what is celebration? Where's the root of celebration? And in general, celebration has been something where people come together in some aspect of event, and there's a collective focus on a deity, a god, a person, an event, and it's a way to amplify something greater than ourselves coming together. I love that we have history of events to do that. And whether it's a birthday or we just went through Mother's Day, and we have many different holidays, right? Some of our events of celebration are also not always an experience of celebration, meaning that sometimes our holidays can feel stressful because we may have challenge with family members, or I just went through Mother's Day and I've had this interesting juxtaposition since I lost my mom of celebrating being a mom and also feeling the loss of my mom. And I just recently lost a dear, dear friend, and she has 3 sons, and the memorial was on Mother's Day. It's a very interesting thing because we do talk about funerals or memorials being a celebration of life.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we have a lot of grief. So being on Mother's Day, seeing her 3 grown sons that I have seen grow up was a pretty intense experience. Celebration often has this juxtaposition to me, meaning that it really includes all things like grief. The amount of grief I felt that day in experiencing her sons and her husband was so deep and powerful. And I also realized that within that grief is the celebration of how much love I felt for each one of them, including her. And I have felt in myself, and I have felt in others, and I've heard others say this to me, I feel guilty celebrating something because this person isn't around or this person is suffering. Let's say you have a friend or a family member that is suffering in some way, and you've been maybe even a caretaker, and yet you want to go celebrate something. You want to go out with friends. You want to go out in nature. You want to dance. You're just having this experience of wanting to celebrate, but you tone it down or tap it down because it feels like they can't work together, that they're mutually exclusive, that you can't really honor the sadness or the challenge that might be happening with someone you love, and also celebrate the aspect of life itself in the ways that you do. And what we're discussing is that celebration, we feel, is all inclusive, meaning that celebration within itself is a prayer, is a sacred ritual of saying, I remember life, and I remember the sacred divinity of life that is in body and out of body, that it is universally and cosmically so. Another example is after 9/11, that was such a tragic event. Thinking of celebrating anything just probably seemed as far from our mind as possible. And I remember biking to the ocean the morning after 9/11 with a dear friend. and we went to the ocean to watch the sunrise. And we were just in awe at watching the sunrise after all of this tragedy, watching the sunrise, watching the ocean moving and trickling in the sun dancing across the water and the birds chirping, and thinking, oh my God, life, the eternal life is still celebrating. It's still celebrating because it's in motion, and yet it's in this aftermath of something that felt so devastating, seemed it was the opposite of. And I remember also 2 weeks later going into Ground Zero because I volunteered there, and I saw this cafe and I saw the menu and I saw like all this dust, and then there was like a person's shoe sitting there. It was devastating. And I could see this juxtaposition of life happening and then life seeming like it's stopping. Celebration, why I feel like it's an important practice, is that it taps us into the remembering of all of it. When we can no longer see our human self, our human body, our animals, the plants, and all the challenge that's happening with the climate, that celebration is our direct line to the eternal flame of life.
So the quote goes, I guess, there's always something worth celebrating. But instead of that being like a cheesy cliche, you're actually taking the deeper dive to really the two could be polarized statements or two poles. You went to 9/11 and there was extreme devastation. You went to 9/11 and you were in complete awe of the rescuers and the family and the community that pulled together. So within that, you found celebration
Mm-hmm.
in all things, and something that could have only been viewed as devastating. And the devastation was still love, and the birds flying, and the sun came up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think that sometimes the devastations of life, those deep polarities that seem like the opposite place that you would find celebration, is actually when we have to search to find the celebration of life, of our divinity, of something bigger that has an aspect of love and living, that it doesn't ever ultimately die. Even though our bodies will die, our celebration is remembering the truth that we were before we came here and the truth that we will be when we leave. And I think the harder part comes is in that between phase. When we do have a body, how do we turn on our divinity, our celebration, in which we do it all differently? How do we do that as a daily practice, as a sacred ritual? My request to myself every day is like, don't wait for an event to have a reason to celebrate. Like you said, there's always a reason to celebrate. The reason is your birthright. The reason is the awe of life, is when you look up at the stars and you feel both terrified that you're so small and both in awe of how you are a part of something that is so big and undescribable through the mind.
So there's that. We don't do light invitations on this podcast. We do all in invitations.
Hell yeah. Why not?
That's right. We
And it
brag.
can be light, right? It can be easy. And at the same time, it's like, oh, whoa, that's not that I've ever heard anybody look at me with cross-eyed and go, oh, that's deep. And that's when I'm like, I think I lost them, folks.
And for me, I feel the easier ones are the bigger ones. Most of us probably do. The bigger ones are the easier ones to like go into that deep grief, to go into that powerful Super Bowl celebration. And to me, the invitation of celebrating the mundane, the everyday, the awe, and the everyday multiple moments, that's where I go, oh shit.
Exactly. When we go into the, like you just said, the Super Bowl moment where everyone's walking around the city, not talking to each other, and then the team wins the Super Bowl, and we're hugging and high-fiving strangers, and we're in celebration, because in that moment, there's enough real estate in the value of this thing that we go, oh, we have permission to celebrate. And so it's easier to do. Or when we lose somebody or something big happens, we have to find something else that matters, right? And we all do this differently through different denominations of religion, through nature, through whatever ways you find you're something more. Celebration is the tool, the direct link. And I'm reminded of a time where I lost my mom 13 years ago now, and she was my best friend. So I've found many different ways in which I have ritualized connecting with her since then. And one day, several years ago, I was on my bike and I was loving the birds and I was just like looking at the sun. And one of the ways that I have found a link to her is through the sun. So often I would ask my mom, give me a sign or can you support me with this? And this particular day, for whatever reason, I was like, I want you, Mom, to just feel how much I love you. And I was just in joy in that moment. Literally, it was a damn Disney movie on that bike. It was the perfect weather. And all of a sudden, out from the sun comes this message. I feel like it came into my crown. And she said, when you feel joy, I feel your love.
Mm.
And not only is that brilliant, because it's a lockdown saying, listen, if you value me feeling you, then the direct link to the divinity, the direct link to life that is eternal, that, and I'm not speaking in any denomination here, I'm just saying the life that keeps going, whatever that means for you. For me, it's that link to my mom, for instance. That link, that gateway is celebration. Joy is an essential piece that comes from celebration. And when I was in an ecstatic state, my question to her was, I want you to feel me. And she's like, yeah, when you're feeling joy, I can feel you.
Yeah.
So to me, that says in this life that we live, and I know a lot of us on a personal growth and spiritual practice, we do a lot of things like gratitudes, and we have these practices that are very supportive. And yet I find that joy for the sake of joy, celebration for the sake of celebration, if made a ritual, helps wake up the remembering
Mm.
of who we are beyond it all. And the more we can take, which I think is what you were leading to, Crystal, the less grandiose things in life, listening to this damn beautiful dog snoring in the background and being in an awe moment. I recently heard microdoses of awe. Can we access microdoses of awe, which I think links to what we're talking about in celebration since the pandemic, especially, but maybe we were moving consciously towards this already, but maybe amplified. People are asking different questions. They're asking, what is really important? We've been asking this question for eons of why am I here? What is the big question? What is my purpose?
Yeah.
It can get covered up pretty easily. We're looking for the extraordinary. How can I be bigger and better? And how can I be gooder and wiser? And yes, I said gooder. But what you and I were talking about is how can we take something so small, the snoring, and find the celebration,
Yeah.
find the eternity in that, find the remembering of, wow, like an ecstatic state to it.
As you were sharing about your mom, it was making me think too of how many of those moments that I have caught myself connecting to my grandmother while walking in the woods and seeing the red bird fly. And it's like, hey, nice to see you. It's like that, like you were saying, those soul breadcrumbs that were left in that perfect moment. And I think a key piece too is because we are so conditioned to swipe culture. Thank you for the external moment. Thank you for the external moment. Next, next, next. That piece of bringing those moments in and letting those moments penetrate inside is a very important upgrade to your nervous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have all these things that we witness and we experience, but do we receive them and bring them in as the gift too? So your gift to your mom is your joy, you experiencing joy, you're gifting her the connection to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you are also at the same time receiving the knowing that she is connecting to you as well. So that exchange is so important. I know, at least to remind myself, as it's really easy to just, oh, that was great. And then back to, it's kind of like, oh,
Next.
and then
Thank
back to
you.
the
Next.
ordinary or something. It was like, wait a minute, can I like really penetrate that? Can I like
I love that
bottle
word
that up?
penetrate. Can you let the awe penetrate you? And quite frankly, it's not always easy. I mean, I'm speaking for myself. And yes, there's a lot of parts of me that, yes, I do. Everyone knows I hug the trees and I lie on the earth and I do all the things.
We
So
only have a photo album of that Google Drive folder on nature, love, and death.
and how we both experience awe and celebration within us. Number one, you pointed out an important fact that it looks different to all of us and it may express differently, but the important piece is, what is celebration? What are you celebrating? That could be something within yourself. Still to this day, I'm sure a lot of us have a little potential on discomfort when we're being word bathed or complimented, whether it's something you're wearing or who you're being or something you've accomplished, where a lot of times we still want to tone it down a little bit. And to your point of like letting something pierce you, it's letting life in someone else or nature or the snoring of my dog pierce me to allow me to remember. And I think for me, celebration equals remembering my constellation self, my cosmic being that is living in this body. Like I said, it's when we come into this body and we leave this body tend to be the ends where we can find celebration, even in the pain. We celebrate the life that has been and we celebrate the life that has entered. It is the tricky part, is the place in between, which is the thing that we're living.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was thinking it as you were saying it. That is so true. Life is the space in between. You come in and you go out, baby.
Yeah. And
All
sometimes
these juicy places in the middle.
right. And so we can be focused, like you said, on swiping to the next and persevering and doing all those things. And sometimes for me, I can feel it in my body. It'll get more rigid. And sometimes I'll just be silly. I'll just like start laughing hysterically for 60 seconds, or I'll jump up and down. And it doesn't always have to be so demonstrative, but I think that it can be a practice. Like, what if even every day you said, okay, if your body is able to do this in some way, you do use that just as one tool to be demonstrative and be like, oh my God, my heart just beat 200,000 times today. Holy shit.
I'm going to do it when the kids walk through the door and I'm like,
yes.
oh my God, you're home. I'm so excited.
Yes, exactly. And we usually get a side eye or like, oh, why are you
I'm going
being
to get
so
a side
weird?
eye.
Totally. But you also, in doing that, you shifted a moment where just that moment, celebration means life. Celebration is all things. And I think that if we can practice, I'm going to do that, just jumping up and down in a
Oh
moment and
my
be like,
gosh.
hey.
It's making me think of so many times that I've actually said the words, that's exciting. And like that flatlined. That's exciting. Dylan may be like, hit a home run. That's exciting, bud. It's not a match for
Yeah.
truly embodying the excitement.
Yes.
This conversation, per usual, has all the stuff come up and it percolates. And I'm witnessing myself right now of how many times in a day I'm going to say not celebrate. That's just the contrast of it, which is illuminating of what am I celebrating, and am I celebrating it? Am I going there? Am I allowing myself to go there? Or am I just saying the words, I'm celebrating?
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Like, one of my testers of whatever I'm feeling, is my body able to express that? And that's why I'm saying, even I practice. I used to do a lot of Tony Robbins when he has you jump up and down, and there's real things that you get to in these ecstatic states. Like, how often do you really get into an ecstatic state? I'm good at being grateful. I can put silver lining on shit every moment of every day. And people are like, you're so positive. And it's not, I don't even think of it as positive. It's just that I do see the beauty in things, not to divert,
Right.
but that's still different for me than being like, I'm celebrating. I
That's
am
right.
in awe and my being is being celebrated. I do think there is a distinction, not to overanalyze it, but between being grateful and celebrating. And I
Yeah.
think they're both really important for today in sharing that. I'm really looking at what is that? What do I truly, like you just said, what do I truly just celebrate? And whether it is simple that it's not simple that my heart beats without me asking it, by the way, it's a
Mhm.
freaking miracle every day, every moment. What if you took a breath really consciously and then just said, oh my God, like you just won the Super Bowl? What if you over dramatized it to just feel what does that feel like in your body? Because I think that it's tapped down more than we know. It can be fun to go, wow, what does celebration, how does celebration live within me? And to go back to the micro doses of awe, can you take the things that are less externally extraordinary and let the thing that seems small on the outside extract the celebration that explodes on the inside? For me, the gift of living needs to be celebrated every day. Celebration to me, it's the universal experience of honoring life. It's like paying homage to life itself. So, like the Om is known as the universal sound, and that life is energy. And if life is energy and the expansion of all life is like the sine wave, it's a very organized wave that holds all of life within it. That if I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling stuck, and all the different things that I might feel in a day or more, I notice when I practice celebrating more consciously every day, even if I don't quote unquote feel it. And that's when I usually do more of the demonstrative things and just like I break a moment. It's kind of like you were saying when the kids come home, you're like, hey, and they're like, what? What are we celebrating? We're like, life. And they think you're crazy. But you know what? That will impact their nervous system and they'll remember that. When we do that, these other frequencies of experiencing in body in between the birth and the death part, all the different feelings and experiences we can have, the more we have that tonal quality of the sine wave that it embraces all life, the more our frustrations, our stucknesses, our grief, our anger can actually be alchemized, digested, and transcended. It's not about rerouting it and saying, hey, it's all
That's right.
good. To me, it's a very distinct difference because when we reroute, we're still holding that anger or that frustration. We're just not going there. But
Yeah.
when we keep allowing our system to celebrate, and we have this sine wave that you will that's calling all life, it calls that anger into its fruition. It lets the whole record play all the way through, if you will. So you finally get to the gem and then it's not holding you. The more that we have this vibration of celebration, the micro doses of awe, it actually helps us be able to digest and navigate the edgier parts of life.
Absolutely. I do appreciate us talking about all the flavors of celebration. And I almost feel like our question has this invitation of not only what are you celebrating, but what does that look like in your body? What does it look like when you celebrate? For me, I have probably more examples of going, okay, I can answer celebration in my mind. I can answer that question for you, but can I show you what that looks like in my body? Do I actually celebrate in my body? Do I let it be all of me and not just a part of me that feels easier, more comfortable, even more accepted socially to do is to say, sure, I celebrate in this way. But then what if I had to break out and show my celebration dance or something? It's like that's that piece that can we even do when we're alone? I'm challenging myself to bring that to the table. Can I go there? It's so important.
It is. I remember telling my mentor years ago, I'm realizing that in order to remember who I truly am beyond this body and within this body, is that I need to celebrate every day. It was a very important moment that landed. It sounds so simple. It's not always so simple. Am I really doing it? It reminds me of when growing up and we're going to school, we're always telling kids to like sit still, focus, be quiet. Hopefully we still get recess, and we go, oh, well, kids need recess. And if you really watch a child in their freer moments, they're running around, they're following the birds. Some of them are chasing them, and then they see them fly away and they laugh, or they're jumping in the puddles. And our adult selves can be like, oh, don't jump in the puddles, you're going to get muddy, or they don't give a shit. And why? What they do care about is celebration, because they're connecting with life in its freer states, as if their body is the divine, your body is the prayer. So how does your body move as that prayer of life, of celebration? I say that not just kids need recess.
Oh
So
my
if,
gosh.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Recess and naps, baby.
right. Totally.
All of us adult children need that too.
Yeah. How can you really allow your body to be the prayer of life? That's why I think I've always loved the ecstatic dance. It's this freedom that allows me to kind of explore, and it can feel awkward. There's times where I certainly have going out dancing. I'm like, wow, I feel really awkward. Am I moving it right? Versus the kid on the playground that's just chasing the birds and rolling around in the dirt. Where can you celebrate? Where can you choose microdoses of awe in the littlest thing? It's highly recommended. Why? Because there's not anything that I can see anyways that is counterproductive to that. There's no contraindications to celebration and awe.
Yeah.
So let's find the extraordinary in the ordinary. Life itself is epic, and that is the celebration. So can we find the littlest things? And if you do that, do things get easier for you because of it? It's very easy to get into the narrower tunnel vision of life. It can be very scary to look outside in the world and go, shit, we're going downhill. But microdoses of awe bring you back. I think that's why psychedelics and plant medicine are a big thing right now, because they're taking you to that place. They're letting you access exactly what we're speaking about today.
That's right. You just get to tap into you at any time.
Yeah. That as much as I respect all of the work that's being done,
Absolutely.
there are other ways to do it as well, is what we're saying. I look forward to hearing your stories of microdoses of awe, and seeing how that moves and breathes in your body, and how that can affect your everyday, and then ultimately your outlook on life and how you engage with it. Honestly, joy is just more fun. And it's not, again, about avoiding anything, but I think we hijack joy a lot just because we've been taught to. At Halloween, I would have a wig, and I remember keeping my wig on. I had a cobalt blue wig, and I got out of my costume, but I kept the wig on. And I remember going for a run. I would run and I'd be like, hey, and I'd wave to people, and they were like, hey. They were immediately, whatever they were thinking of in that moment, the crazy lady with the cobalt blue wig just took them out of a moment of what seemed so important and just said, remember life.
Totally. I love that.
It is a sacred prayer. Your body is the sacred prayer of life, and ecstatic states of awe are part of it. That's the direct link.
That's right.
Here's to our microdoses and macrodoses of awe. May we honor the sacred prayer of it and practice it.
Daily dose minimum.
Daily dose. Yeah, daily dose. We'll just keep it at the daily dose. If I don't feel I can celebrate anything, then I'm going to jump up and down for 5 seconds and be woohoo, like you just won the lottery. There's many ways in order to do that. If you already feel very celebratory, what is a different way that you can find that in yourself? Because there's always something there that maybe you are missing that you actually overlook. And how can we bring the internal part where, if you imagine if it was the biggest thing ever, because truly taking every single breath is the biggest freaking thing ever.
Yeah.
But it becomes so mundane and so normalized that we forget to go, holy shit, I just lived another day. Oh my God, this whole podcast, I've been breathing and my heart's been beating and my body's been doing these freaking miraculous things. My brain is understanding mostly what we're saying. That's amazing. So, with that, we say thank you for taking this journey with us. And until
Absolutely.
next time.
Until next time.
And now, Trevor Hall with Blue Sky Mind.